Minister of Justice says a press statement will be disseminated this week to keep justice workers updated on their function books. Minister of TEAT says August 1st will be maintained as the opening date to U.S. flights. And Prime Minister gives updates on Tropical Cyclone number 9. Those are the headlines for Wednesday, July the 29th, 2020. Good evening, viewers. This is SXM Daily News. I am Valerie Van Putten. And as usual, we have a packed newscast for you, so let's get started. In our first story, the Honorable Prime Minister of St. Martin, Sylvia Jacobs, issued an update on the approaching storm at today's virtual Council of Ministers weekly press briefing. The Prime Minister advised the community to prepare and to remain vigilant. The Prime Minister also gave the latest coordinates of the approaching tropical cyclone Isaias.
Tropical cyclone, or the potential cyclone, is going to be passing through the Lesser Antilles and will pass within 135 miles south of St. Martin. As the winds extend further up to 275 miles from the center, we can expect to feel wind gusts as well as experience rainfall as well as thunderstorms throughout today and hopefully ending by tomorrow. As Minister mentioned, ESF3 have made all the necessary precautions, but of course, if the rain does reach its maximum expected number of 6 inches, that can be still detrimental and cause flooding in the usual areas. So persons living in those areas are asked, of course, to remain vigilant and to notify if there is a situation that becomes untenable.
And also at this morning's virtual Council of Ministers weekly press briefing, Minister of Romy, the Honorable Yorendi Doran, updated the press on the preparations for the impending storm. The minister said that an assessment was done in several areas and that all the trenches have been cleared. He expounded further about preparations for the storm.
In relation to the impending tropical disturbance, which is expected to strengthen into our tropical storm, Isaias, I would like to inform the general public that the Department of Infrastructure Management did an assessment of the trenches in the critical areas. The critical areas are those which are prone to flooding. The respective contractors were instructed by the department to clear any debris, secure the flow of the water in the trenches. As of yesterday, all the trenches were cleared. Furthermore, the contractors will be on standby in the event that their services are needed in clearing debris from the trenches again. Crews have also been put together and placed on standby in the event that the roads need to be cleared up as well. I would once again like to remind persons who feel that they may be in need of a shelter in the event of a storm or hurricane to make use of the early registration. It is imperative to maintain the social distancing measures in these shelters as well, as we continue to observe the increase in the COVID-19 cases. Furthermore, it is vital to have a slight idea of the relevant expectation beforehand in order for us as a government to better prepare for these persons who might need shelter. The digital form can be found on the government's website, www.stmartingov.org, as well as on the Facebook page of the Ministry of Vromi. Additionally, as the peak of the hurricane season is near, I'm advising residents to take notice of the flyer and schedule for the hurricane cleanup, which is continuously being published in the local newspaper, the Ministry of Vromi Facebook page, as well as all other news outlets. As of August 1st until the 31st, the haulers will be collecting debris from the central bin location per district as mentioned in this schedule. I would also like to reiterate to the community to take the necessary precautions by clearing their surrounding areas of any debris or unwanted items that can be a hazard during the passing of any tropical disturbance.
And in other news for you at this time, Corporate Communications Officer at the Princess Juliana International Airport, Audrey St. Louis Jack, speaking to our news department, announced that the airport was closed today due to the approaching weather system.
On behalf of the Princess Juliana International Airport, and in particularly the managing board of the Princess Juliana International Airport Operating Company, please be informed that the SXM Hurricane Emergency Team Center has been officially activated due to the tropical storm system. The airport will be operational on Wednesday, July 29, 2020, but that is only going to be through 11 a.m. for any queries and concerns that the passengers may have. And the Chief Operations Officer, or COO, Mr. Michel Hyman, has also officially announced that all flights have been canceled and grounded until further notice. And the management and staff ask that you practice vigilance during the ongoing monitoring of the tropical storm system. And we, of course, want everybody to maintain all the required precautionary measures. We would also want all our passengers and visitors to make sure know that they can have access to our website. Just click on www.sxmairport.com and to get all your updates in your live flight feed, as well as our social media pages on Instagram, Twitter, and of course, Facebook. It's popular in our region and also internationally as well. So please go on and get all the necessary updates concerning the flight updates when we get back up and running, hopefully by tomorrow on Thursday.
Meanwhile, Minister of TEAT, the Honorable Ludmila de Wever, has announced that Dutch St. Martin has maintained August the 1st as the opening date to U.S. flights.
Just a quick update for the Ministry of TEAT this week. In regards to the airport reopening, we are still opening the airport as of August 1st to U.S. flights. It's a heavily reduced flight schedule. Delta Airlines has reduced to 3 flights a week. JetBlue has canceled flights from Florida and reduced to 1 flight a week from New York, from JFK. American Airlines has 1 flight coming in from Charlotte and 5 flights coming in from Florida. In terms of last week, in terms of inspections coming from the Ministry of TEAT, last week over 50 restaurants had been visited and site inspections were conducted. The establishments had everything in place in order for us to adhere to the guidelines, the health protocols. Inspections have also been conducted for all hotels and other lodgings. We are also continuing the second week of the training for the taxi drivers. That are currently, last week was at the airport, this week was the taxi associations from Phillipsburg, the rest of the airport, as well as the harbor, and the other taxi associations not affiliated with the airport.
As we continue now, and also at this morning's virtual Council of Ministers weekly press briefing, Minister of Education, Dr. Anders Rodolph Samuel, has announced the postponement of the CXC-related exams. The minister said that it has been canceled due to the weather conditions. And according to the minister, a new date will be set as to when the students will be able to resit these exams.
Today, some students were scheduled to sit some CXC-related exams, and some of these exams were to take place in the morning and some were to take place in the afternoon. Because of the weather conditions at the moment of today in St. Martin, we have decided that all of the exams, both those of the morning and those of the afternoon, are canceled. The reset of the exams, the date and time, will be mentioned and will be conveyed to you all and to everyone on a later date. And we know that this will then come from the CXC board. Second, I would like to go back over another item that we have spoken about in the past, and that is the opening of schools. Some persons met me and they would like to know if schools are going to be open. And yes, as I said before, schools are going to be open because education have to continue. And when we say education have to continue, and we look at the situation in St. Martin, we are going to do this together. Together because this is an issue that is an issue that concerns parents, teachers, students, school managers, school boards, Ministry of Education, community, government, and everyone.
And still to come, Member of Parliament for the NA queries the Wynwood Roads project from the NRPB. We'll have the details to that story and much more when SXM Daily News returns.
GEBE has been faithfully serving the communities of St. Martin, powering your home and our economy. Come rain or shine, our qualified team of professionals are working hard 24 hours a day to provide you and your family with safe, reliable electricity and water. We use the latest technologies and test our products daily to maintain the highest international standards. Our friendly staff is always there to assist you, whether in person, over the phone, or online. We are committed to constantly improving our products and services, making them more efficient, effective, and environmentally friendly to serve you better today and our next generation of clients tomorrow. GEBE, powering a brighter future.
Our friend Megawati is here with tips to save you energy. 1. Turn your airco temperature up. 2. Use a ceiling fan instead. 3. Buy energy-saving products. Save some green with NVGEBE.
And welcome back, viewers. And as we continue now with news out of French St. Martin, the French side is to resume internal border control as of 12 p.m. on Friday, July the 31st, 2020. People needing to access the French side should do so before Friday at noon. After that, the French side will only give access for people from the Dutch side who work on the French side for medical purposes and elderly case. The access will only be given with the required paperwork, however. The Prefet has made the control resumption decision due to the increase of the new COVID-19 cases on the Dutch side. The Dutch side, however, does not yet plan to resume reciprocal controls. That means that people from French side can freely access the Dutch side. And in more news for you at this time, the House of Parliament sat in a plenary public session on Tuesday, July the 28th, 2020. The public meeting, which started on June the 5th and then continued on June the 19th, was again reconvened on Tuesday, July the 28th, to discuss the various approved programs and projects of the Trust Fund and the upcoming hurricane season. Another topic that was to be discussed was the focus audit done by the General Audit Chamber of St. Martin in May 2020. Referencing the reconstruction funds for St. Martin, the meeting was called by MPs Claudius Boncamper, Melissa Gumbs, Sarah Westcott-Williams, Akeem Arundel, Rayon Peterson, and Christophe Emmanuel. Prime Minister of St. Martin, the Honorable Sylvia Jacobs, who is also in charge of General Affairs, responded to the various questions posed to her about the NRPB. The Prime Minister expounded further.
The repairs to the shelters were the first works tender after the approval of the ERP, Emergency Recovery Project 1, in July of 2018. This tender was a combined result of procurement and technical. The procurement component was written by the IRC, and the technical specifications were prepared by the Ministry of ROMI. Both the IRC and the Ministry of ROMI received support from the World Bank with their respective inputs. The tender failed because only 2 bids were received, and they were at that time perceived as being too expensive. The government's evaluation committee therefore recommended to negotiate or retender. The government's evaluation committee, the World Bank was unable to provide the necessary no objection to negotiate, and therefore the project had no choice but to retender the package of the shelter repairs. What is the position of St. Martin on the companies involved in cases or with cases of corruption and fraud for working with government? This current government ensures that public funds are used for their intended purposes, as is our core and central responsibility as government in the advancement of the public interest, and is the most overriding reason for advancing the integrity agenda of St. Martin. No policy as such exists. However, in this case specifically, the case was against an individual and not necessarily the company. However, a legal advice is still pending pertaining to this in terms of whether we should have a policy in place or not. There is currently no policy in effect. The other question related to further clarification on the Wynwood Roads case and why it is permitted for this company to participate in the tenders under the World Bank procedures. With respect to Wynwood Roads qualifications for executing works under the trust fund, it was concluded that there was no legal grounds for the NRPB or the government or the World Bank to exclude Wynwood Roads from participating in the tenders. The World Bank procedures do not allow companies to participate that are recorded in the World Bank listing of ineligible firms and individuals. However, there are at this moment no St. Martin-based companies in this database belonging to the World Bank of debarred firms. Another possible reason to exclude a company from tendering is if government would have had legislation in place that prohibits government from working with companies on these types of grounds. As I mentioned just a few minutes ago, there exists no current legislation to that effect. The following question related to the poverty platform receiving complaints on the home repair program that were filed and that they filed grievances against the NRPB and that no responses had been provided. I have verified this statement with the NRPB and I was informed that they have received 2 formal complaints of homeowners that are part of the private home repair program through Mr. Cormerks and the Consumer Coalition / Poverty Platform. The NRPB is handling these complaints in accordance with their complaints procedure, which can be found on the NRPB's website. One of these complaints has recently been resolved and the second is still being worked on. The NRPB has been in close communication with the complainants and is working diligently on resolving the outstanding concerns. As such, the statement that has no responses are being provided to many complaints submitted by the Poverty Platform is not recognized as such as they are dealing with all the complaints.
And in the same meeting of Parliament of Tuesday, July the 28th, 2020, Member of Parliament Christophe Emmanuel queried the Wynwood Roads projects from the NRPB. The Member of Parliament says he wants to understand how is it possible that the answers they are receiving today with regards to the Larimar case, that government is saying there is no legislation about a condemned person receiving work from government.
Just for clarification's sake, Mr. Chairman, this is mind-boggling to me. I listened to the Honorable Prime Minister, Mr. Chairman, specifically when it comes in relations to when the Prime Minister made mention, Mr. Chairman, there is no legal basis, there is no legislation, there is no grounds. But Mr. Chairman, there is jurisprudence. There is a practice that is known in this country, Mr. Chairman, that if you are condemned by a court, you do not get work by government. The banks in a whole, Mr. Chairman, wouldn't even give you a bank account once they know that you have been condemned. Mr. Chairman, I am trying to understand, how is it possible that the answers we are receiving here today, Mr. Chairman, concerning Wynwood Roads, who has been condemned, Mr. Chairman, by the court in the Larimar case to a tune of $2 million. Now I can understand, Mr. Chairman, if those individuals from Wynwood Roads don't know about it, but Mr. Chairman, the director and all the local staff of the NRBP very well know about the Larimar case and the condemnation of Wynwood Roads. How is it possible, Mr. Chairman, that the government is saying that they don't have no legislation? What about the practice Mr. Chairman, concerning receiving work from government once being condemned in a court. What is the policy then, Mr. Chairman? It can't be just like this, Mr. Chairman, because that is the answer. But Mr. Chairman, we know about the exit strategy. We know about the exit policy, Mr. Chairman. You don't receive work.
We are not in.
So I would like some clarifications on that, Mr. Chairman.
And Member of Parliament for the United Democrats, Sarah Westcott Williams, also queried the NRPB projects. Mrs. Westcott Williams wanted to know if she understood correctly that except for the first emergency program with all the different projects, if those are the only ones for which grant agreements have been signed. She elaborates further.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the Prime Minister. Prime Minister, did I understand you correctly that except for the first project, the big emergency project with several sub-projects, or let me rephrase that, the first emergency program with all of the different projects, those are the only ones for which grant agreements have been signed, even though you have designation.
A moment, please. Members, we don't have sufficient people on the screens. Thank you. MP Westcott Williams, you will proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I was asking via you to the Prime Minister, so none of the other identified projects outside of the big emergency, the first big emergency program, for none others has a grant agreement been signed. My question that I'm understanding that correctly from the Prime Minister. Secondly, if the Prime Minister could go in a little more with respect to the project that has been referred to on more than one occasion in responding to questions, and that is the Enterprise Recovery Project, the so-called SME project, and the fact that that project is ready to be rolled out. Do I from this conclude that the conditions and criteria for this particular program are established, and these will then be executed by the different financing institutions, including QCredit, which will be one of the first to get started? Given that fact, can the status of QCredit up to the point of them being charged with this project, can that be explained? And again, Mr. Chairman, it could be in the next set of questions if time would be required to get that information. But I want to tie it in specifically to the answer given. And in addition to that, the attempts or the intention by government, the efforts by government to have a loan contracted via the central bank for the same sector of business, namely the small, medium, and enterprise sector. How are those discussions going? Any progress with respect to that particular effort of government to attract an even bigger amount via a loan from the central bank, also for the sector of the SME?
Now, turning to our weather forecast for July the 29th, 2020. Cloudiness, showers, thunderstorms, and strong winds associated with potential tropical cyclone 9 continue to affect the local area. Storm force winds and 2 to 4 inches of rainfall are expected as the system moves across the Leeward Islands. Residents and users of areas prone to flooding and/or rockfalls should take the necessary precautions as moderate to heavy showers are expected. Sea conditions are expected to peak near 15 feet. Consequently, a small craft warning is in effect for St. Martin until further notice. Small craft operators and sea bathers should avoid open waters. Residents and users of coastal areas should take the necessary precautions. So the outlook through Friday midday, cloudy and windy with scattered showers and isolated thunderstorms. Now, let's turn to your 3-day forecast. And still to come, Cahill resident succumbs to gunshot wounds. We'll have the details of that story and more when SXM Daily News returns.
Make use of WIB mobile banking with easy access and direct usage of face recognition, PIN code, or fingerprint. Download WIB mobile banking app and make your transaction from anywhere at any time. For more information, visit wib-bank.net/quick-login.
Welcome back, viewers. And as we continue now with more news for you in this item from the police blotter, on Monday last, July the 27th, 2020, the Police Dispatch Center received several frantic calls requesting assistance after several gunshots were heard in the area of Cahill. Police patrols and ambulance personnel rushed to Hyssop Road, where they discovered a male lying on the side of the road, not showing any signs of life. The male, who was pronounced dead on the scene, was later identified by bystanders as JBA, a resident of the area. According to his neighbors, JBA had just stepped outside of his home and was met by an unknown perpetrator or perpetrators who fired several shots before fleeing the scene on foot. The area was quickly cordoned off by the officers while the personnel of the forensic department gathered evidence at the scene. A search was done in the area, but the shooters is still at large. And still to come, the Minister of Justice says a press statement will be disseminated this week to keep justice workers updated on their function books. We'll have the details of that story when SXM Daily News returns. And as we end this edition of SXM Daily News for you this evening, viewers, at the Virtual Council of Ministers weekly press briefing this morning, Minister of Justice, the Honorable Anna Richardson, gave an update about the function book. The minister says a press statement will be disseminated this week in order to keep the justice workers updated.
Regarding the function books, a press statement will be disseminated this week in order to keep the justice workers and the general public updated on where the Ministry of Justice is currently with this item. I assure you that the function book remains a top priority for the ministry, and as such, we will continue to update on its status.
And with that, viewers, brings us to the end of this edition of SXM Daily News for this evening. I am Valerie Van Putten, thanking you for joining me this evening. And just a reminder that this and other programs are available online. Simply log on to stmartinmediacenter.com for viewing. And on behalf of the SXM Daily News team, we thank you for watching and plan on meeting you right back here again tomorrow.